Now that is satisfying. You gotta not forget the gnome. Hello good people, I'm Dimitri, and beside me is the long-awaited P600s. We initially saw this at Computex, and now we have the final production sample in our hands, so let's overview. Big thanks to all of our sponsors for making CES possible. Now the Eclipse P series is all about performance and silence, so the P600s is kind of the combination of the two. Interior shell is basically based off the Evolv X. Make sure to check out all of our content that we based on the Evolv X. So, you know, it's a roomy interior, you can populate an ITX motherboard above, so all the same features in terms of the sliding low pads beside the motherboard tray. I'm not a fan of those, I just, you know, simply prefer regular rubber grommets, but they have made a bunch of changes on the exterior. So one of the most predominant things right now you see is this matte steel. It's not plastic, despite looking like plastic. You know, it's quite cold to the touch in this very cold Montreal basement, thus why I'm wearing two sweaters. I am not a fan of this color. Now, matte is fine, and you know, it will not show off as, you know, as many fingerprints as, let's say, non-matte steel. But I was hoping they could go into the direction of being a little bit more, you know, creative. Like, for example, if you remove the front little piece over here to reveal your mesh fabric, I was hoping that this mesh fabric would be accented colors. So like maybe a slightly darker gray, or they could go into like a colorful territory. But, you know, in terms of this all black design, it is a little bit boring. But of course, it's really awesome to see this whole mesh movement. You know, cases in 2017 were these glass closed boxes with choked airflow. Now we're just swinging the other way, meshifying everything basically. And so it's really good to see mesh on the interior, you know, below this metallic casing, so you can have a quiet system that is going to be hotter, or opened it up for better airflow. It is very cool to see a new pattern being introduced to the case market. You know, the whole idea of fabric being interchangeable. So I'm hoping that Phanteks plays around with color and actually delivers something a little bit different other than black, maybe different colors, of course. But what happens if you rip it? What happens if you accidentally slightly push too hard on it? Is it gonna lose its you know, elasticity? Is it gonna be droopy later on? So a lot of questions arise, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. This front plate can be angled out, so it opens up airflow, and the side ventilations are facing the back, so any noise escaped from the front will be channeled towards the rear. The I/O is hidden behind this cover with dual USB 3s, a Type-C Gen 2 port, audio jacks, and a reset switch. The power button is at the top, along with this other removable magnetic plate that reveals another similar to the front mesh dust filter that is awesome to catch any settling dust, and also for aesthetics if you want to open up the front and the top for airflow. The tempered glass side panel swivels to open, pretty standard stuff. It can also be removed from the hinges, while the rear panel also swivels to open. It has noise dampening material applied on it, since this is an S edition of the enclosure, therefore silence focused, and it has a little fabric taps to help you easily open that rear side panel. As for the interior, you have three 140mm fans, and all the layout is exactly the same as the Evolv X. And you know, you don't really get to experience the enclosure unless you build in it. So let's do that now. It's not plugged in. So here's the situation. We got the P600s all situated with the system. By the way, this Aorus 2080 Ti is absolutely insane. I actually like this. So instead of temperature testing, we have got ourselves an anemometer. An anemometer that measures the air speed. And so the whole idea is to use an instrument like this to see what the airflow basically is like.
I think it's gonna be pretty fun. We're actually gonna see if it's accurate though.
Let's begin the airflow test.
So basically this anemometer, what we wanna do is we wanna set it up inside the case. It's a really quick and dirty setup right now because we're leaving for CES tomorrow morning. Again, it's just gonna be non-scientific. We're gonna put it in there, see if there's any differences in the readings from when we put on and off the side panels. Basically this little fan in here, it's gonna spin and it's gonna give us a measurement in meters per second. Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can actually see a visual difference when the front panel is installed, when it's removed, when it's on an angle, and then when the dust filter is installed, and all that goodness.
I need to make sure that it's straight. That's the thing. All right, we're all set up. I think we should turn it on. Let's see what happens.
Oh, okay, you do it.
Oh, it didn't knock over. That's good.
Ooh. So that's stationary. It will spin if you speak into it.
So putting my hand here will bring us all the way down to 250 feet per minute. So basically, it seems to be working. Again, unscientific, but it seems to be working.
So all the measurements are in, and it's interesting to see the variation of the speed movement. We're measuring it in feet per minute. So with the case in the default configuration, we measured 271, but slightly angle in this front panel, we measured at 281. So the difference is not significant, and removing this whole front panel made no difference, which means that whole angular motion is actually pretty good. It clears up enough room here. But then the interesting thing about removing this section, which is, you know, it's very open, it's made of mesh, so it's made to move air through, we went up to 300 feet per minute. So the difference between completely closed and this thing removed was about 30. Now, removing the dust filter, we went up to 313. So the dust filter is actually not restrictive at all, which is pretty impressive, and you can blow through it. It can still feel air coming through it, which is pretty nice. And when you're dealing with high static pressure fans, that is all good. And so the difference between completely, you know, default configuration versus unrestricted front intake is about 40 feet per minute. So it's not that significant, but when you're taking into account completely choked front fans, we're reading about 160. So this whole front panel design with the mesh, the dust filter, and this whole angular front panel motion is pretty decent. All those who are contemplating about the Evolv X airflow can now kind of trust that Phanteks has, you know, fixed it. And the last thing we want to test for a little experimentation is to completely close off that front panel, because that is quite common on cases. And so completely unrestricted, we were getting around 315 feet per minute. But now with you know, those front fans completely kind of blocked off with a few millimeters away from the front metal piece. Mike, what is that reading?
I think we're at 161.
Oh wow.
It's like nothing. Huh. It's pretty cool.
Interesting. As for the price, it is slightly cheaper than the Evolv X, which is good if you are considering picking up the Evolv X for its interior layout, for its ITX accommodation, you know, vertical GPUs. So this is a good option if potentially you're looking for that whole performance aspect slash silence focused system. All right, guys, so that is the Eclipse P600s from Phanteks. You know, it's nice to see them kind of innovating the exterior design, but I'm hoping they would also focus a little bit more on the interior and kind of like modify certain things that you know, users are, you know, giving them feedback on and not super satisfied with. And I'm hoping that we'll see something like that in the future release. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.